The prophet Samuel was the last judge in Israel. As the book of Judges says, that because there was no king in Israel, everyone did that which was right in their own eyes. But Samuel said that no, Yehovah is your king. You do have a king. If you want a king like every other nation, you are going to be in deep trouble. And he was told by the Almighty to tell exactly what would happen if they were to anoint a human king over them. But the people wanted a human king, and so Samuel was the one who ended up anointing King Shaul, and then later David to be king of Israel. But it was while Samuel was in Shiloh that it says that the people of Israel were set in battle array against the Philistines. And at that time, they sent back to Shiloh, back to where the tabernacle was and the Ark of the Covenant, and they sent back that they might bring from there the Ark of the Covenant of Yehovah Tsevaot, who dwells between the cherubim. And this is very significant, and this is why it is so important that we understand that the name of Yehovah is used 6,828 times in the Bible. It doesn't appear in the English versions, but it does in the Hebrew. And so whenever we see the words L-O-R-D in all capitals or G-O-D in all capitals, in the Hebrew it is always Yod-He-Vav-He. It is always Yehovah. And then Yehovah, the Lord of hosts, Yehovah Tsevaot. That is the title, Yehovah, the commander of his armies. So it is Yehovah, the commander of his armies, who dwells between the wings of the cherubim. And Israel knows that, and they know that they are in trouble because the Philistines outnumber them greatly. And so, while they're set in battle array, they know there's no hope for them unless they have the presence of Almighty God with them. But just as we were told when we were coming into the promised land, that the angel of Yehovah is not going to go among us and defeat all of our enemies as it was in the days of old, but that our enemies are going to end up living among us because we kept on going back into disobedience, and because of that, the Almighty's presence was not going to be with us on a continual basis. We were going to have to fight it out on our own. We are going to have to live with Babylon, with the pagans among us, because the Almighty was not going to fight for us. But Israel knows that their survival, there's no hope, unless they bring the Ark of the Covenant from Shiloh, the Ark of the Covenant of Yehovah Tsevaot, who dwells between the wings of the cherubim. And so they sent to Shiloh. But it tells us that the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the Ark of the Covenant of God. That tells us a great story, a big story. Because these two sons of Eli, the high priest, were absolutely corrupt, and Eli would not correct them. They were by force taking the offerings that people were bringing to the temple, and they were taking them by force if they would not give them raw meat so that they could cook them the way they wanted to cook them. They were not satisfied with the provisions of the Levites and the priest, the way the Almighty had set it up. No, they wanted to do it their way. They wanted a bigger cut of the action, so to speak. And the women that came up to the tabernacle, well, Hophni and Phinehas were having extramarital relationships with them, if we want to put it in modern terms. They were laying with the women who were coming up to the temple, up to the tabernacle. And Eli was doing nothing about it. And this is where Samuel comes in, where the Almighty tells Samuel that his judgment is going to fall upon Eli and upon Hophni and Pinchas, that his judgment would fall upon them because of their corruption. They have gotten fat off the offerings that were brought in. They were taking the lion's share of everything while the people were manipulated, intimidated, and controlled by the religious system they had set up around the holy sanctuary. So Israel sent back and took the Ark of the Covenant, and they brought it out to the battle. And when it came out, the nation of Israel, all the soldiers, they all cheered and they shouted with such joy. And the Philistines thought, oh no, this is the Ark of the Covenant. They came out of Egypt, and all these nations were leveled because of it, because the presence of Yehovah was among them. And so they go into this battle, and the Philistines are already frightened out of their minds. But the Almighty doesn't fight for Israel. The Ark of the Covenant is taken by the Philistines. And after a series of plagues, the Ark of Yehovah Tsevaot was then returned on an unattended cart after they were afflicted by deadly plagues. And so a cart was hitched to 2 cows that had offspring. And this is the test that the Philistines were going to give, because once they brought the Ark of the Covenant into the temple of Dagon, the fish god, it says that the next day that the statue of Dagon, the fish god, had fallen over. They set it back up the next day, it fell over, and the palms were broken off, and all that remained was the stump, or the fishy part of Dagon. The people were afflicted with these deadly plagues, and so they said, okay, we're going to send it back, but this is how we're going to do it. We are going to hitch up to this cart, we're going to hitch up 2 heifers that have offspring. They have calves. We're going to keep the calves back in the stall, and we're going to hitch the ark up to this cart and then set it loose. Now, you know what those female cows are going to do. They're going to turn right around and get back to their calves, but they don't do that. They go right straight down the road, and they end up at Kiriath Jearim. And the people of Kiriath Jearim, the men fetched up the Ark of Yehovah, and they brought it into the house of Abinadab. Abinadab is David, who will be the king, David's older brother. And so Abinadab, he sanctified, he set apart his son, Eleazar, to keep the Ark of Yehovah. It's not going anywhere. That when it first arrived, then people looked into the ark, and 50,000 people died because of it. And so then they turned around and they brought it into the house of David's brother, his older brother, and he sanctified his son and set him apart, and it says, you watch over this. Don't let anyone near this. And it came to pass that the ark abode in Kiriath Jearim a long time, 20 years of silence before heaven, 20 years. And the high priest does not go in before the Ark of the Covenant on the Day of Atonement, 20 years of silence. And it says that all the house of Israel lamented after Yehovah. They longed to hear his voice. They longed to have his presence, but it was not there. And Samuel spoke then to all the house of Israel and said, if you will return to Yehovah with all your hearts, then you need to put away the strange gods and Ashtaroth, Easter, from among you. You know, the bare-breasted Babylonian sex goddess. You need to get rid of all the images of Easter that are among you. You need to prepare your hearts to seek Yehovah and serve him only. Have no other gods in his face. if you'll do that, then he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. Only after you repent do you have an opportunity. You have been plagued, judge after judge after judge. The Philistines have been used by the Almighty to bring you back to him. And if you will seek him with your whole heart, then do what the word says. Do what the Torah instructs. Put no other gods in his face. So the children of Israel put away Baalim, the lords such as Nimrod and the reincarnated Nimrod, little baby Tammuz, who was born on December 25th. And then Easter, the Babylonian fertility goddess. You put away these gods and goddesses and serve Yehovah only, then will the Almighty deliver you out of the hands of the Philistines. Well, Samuel tells us that years later, after soundly defeating the Philistines at Emek Rephaim, King David gathered 30,000 chosen men of Israel to bring up to Jerusalem the Ark of God. The Ark of God. And then it states this over and over in the scripture, the Ark of God. And then it defines the God, because this is not Baal, this is not just the Lord, this is not the Ark of the Lord, this is the Ark of God, and it says, whose name is called Yehovah Tsevaot, who dwells between the cherubim. That is the name of the God of Israel. And that's why we need to say it. We need to remember it. He brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, so the whole world will know that his name is Yehovah. And the Yehovah who dwells between the cherubim, that God is, his name is Yehovah Tsevaot, Yehovah, the commander of his armies. That's why Israel wanted the Ark of the Covenant of Yehovah Tsevaot to come into the battle. This is why David, after defeating the Philistines, then and the repentance has happened. And his brother, his older brother, Abinadab, and his son Eleazar, they have the Ark of the Covenant there at Kiryat Jearim. And so David wants to bring the Ark of the Covenant of God, who is called Yehovah Tsevaot, who dwells between the cherubim. And so in Chronicles it says that David went up, and all of Israel, to Kiryat Jearim, which belongs to the tribe of Judah, to bring up from thence the Ark of God, whose name is called Yehovah. See, it's the Ark of God, whose name is called Yehovah. It specifies the name of God. David had earlier in one of his battles actually spoke and named a place Baal, which just means the Lord. It means the Lord. Baal is in Hebrew the name for husband. This is what Sarah called her husband, Abraham. Lord, my liege, my Lord, Baal. But that is not his name. His name is Yehovah. So David wants to bring up from the house of his older brother, he wants to bring up the Ark of Yehovah Tsevaot. The same Ark that was taken into captivity and never came back. And so it tells us in 2 Samuel that David and the men who were with him, they set the Ark of Yehovah upon a new cart. You're going to see this is a new move of the Spirit. They set the Ark of God upon a new cart and brought it out of the house of David's older brother, Abinadab, that was in Gibeah, and David's nephews, Uzzah and Ahio, drove the new cart. And David and all the house of Israel played before Yehovah on all manner of instruments. And when the oxen shook the cart, Uzzah, David's nephew, put out his hand to steady the ark, and the anger of Yehovah was kindled against David's nephew, Uzzah, and God smote him for their error. Not for Uzzah's error, for their error. And Uzzah died beside the ark of God. David immediately became afraid of Yehovah that day. After years and years, he's bringing the ark up. They have repented. They've defeated the Philistines, and now they have the opportunity, and he wants to bring the ark of Yehovah up to Jerusalem. But then David became so afraid that he would not move the ark of Yehovah into the city of David. But he carried it aside into the house of Obed-Edom, the Gittite, and there it remained for 3 months. And Yehovah blessed Obed-Edom and all of his household. And it was told to King David, Yehovah has blessed the house of Obed-Edom and all that is his because of the ark of God. So in the Chronicles, it records that David decided that he would construct a tabernacle for the ark of God. Wait, it's not the ark of God, it is the ark of Yehovah, the ark of Yehovah Tsevaot. And he constructed this tabernacle for the ark in the city of David. And David then said, no one ought to carry the ark of God except for the Levites. For them has Yehovah chosen to carry the ark of God and to minister unto him forever. David learned his lesson. And then David assembled the children of Aaron, the Kohanim, and the Levites, and he said unto them, you are the chief of the fathers of the Levites. Sanctify yourselves, set yourselves apart, purify yourselves, get ready, both you and your brethren, so that you may bring up the ark of Yehovah, the God of Israel, into the place that I have prepared for it. Because you did not do this at the first, Yehovah, our God, made a breach upon us because we sought him not after the due order. We didn't do it right. We didn't do it right. We had a new cart, a new move of the Spirit. We then had men drive the ark, and because we did not do it right, that is why death ensued. We said God was doing a new thing. See, David was a king. David, according to the Torah, is required to make an exact copy of the Torah, his own scroll, so that he would know every single word, every single letter, so that he would be able to rule and judge the people according to that. And because you did not bring up the ark in due order, that's why this happened. So the priests and the Levites sanctified themselves to bring up the ark of Yehovah, the God of Israel. And the children of the Levites bear the ark of God upon their shoulders with the staves thereof, as Moses commanded according to the word of Yehovah. That is exactly how it was to be done. It is to be carried on the shoulders of the priest. They are the ministers. And this thing is so heavy that you could only take a few steps under the weight of the Ark of the Covenant. And then you would have to another set of priests would have to come under and put their shoulder to it. And they would have to travel a short distance. And then the priest again and again and again. It is not up to one person, to put the Ark of the Covenant or the Spirit or the move of God upon their ox cart and parade it out because they are the big person. Because they are the king. This is their ministry. No, it is carried on the shoulders of all those who are willing and sanctify themselves. And that is how the ministry continues on to this very day. Those who have sanctified themselves and decide that they are going to put their shoulder to the load. Because if they don't put their shoulder to the load doesn't get carried.